The Wild West, a time when bullets did the talking and the law was just a word. Want to know who struck fear into sheriffs and became legends of the outlaw world? From cunning robbers to elusive gunslingers, we've got the top 10 most wanted bandits of the Wild West. Their stories are packed with danger, intrigue, and bloodshed. This is Time Lens, and are you ready to dive into a world where every day was a fight for survival? Then hit that subscribe button and explore the thrilling tales of the past. Jesse Woodson is one of the most famous figures of the Wild West, remembered for his bold robberies of banks, trains, and stagecoaches in the 19th century. Born in 1847 in Missouri, he grew up in a family of wealthy landowners. His father was a preacher and a farmer but passed away early, leaving the family to fend for themselves. Jesse's life took a dramatic turn during the Civil War. Missouri was a hot spot, caught between the North and the South. Jesse's older brother, Frank, joined the Confederate forces, and by the time Jesse was 16, he became part of a guerrilla group. These raids were brutal, and Jesse was badly injured during one of them. The war left a lasting mark, shaping him into someone used to hardship and violence. After the war, Jesse and Frank, along with other former guerrillas, turned to robbery. In 1869, Jesse reportedly gained national attention by robbing a bank in Missouri, an incident that ended tragically when a cashier, mistaken for an old enemy, was shot. This daring act made headlines across the country. Jesse and Frank led the infamous James Younger gang, known for their attacks on banks and trains. Their crimes prompted a nationwide manhunt, with detectives from the Pinkerton agency on their trail, but Jesse was clever and had a knack for avoiding capture. Over time, Jesse gained a reputation as a Robin Hood figure, though there's little evidence he actually helped the poor. His story became romanticized, even though the gang's actions often involved violence against witnesses. Jesse's story came to an end on April 3, 1882. He was shot at home by Robert Ford, a member of his gang who did it for the reward money. This marked the end of a man whose life symbolized both the harsh reality and the romanticized image of the Wild West. Butch Cassidy, born Robert Leroy Parker on April 13, 1866, in Utah, grew up in a large Mormon family as the eldest of 13 children. Life on his family's farm was tough, and young Robert was inspired by a local rancher named Mike Cassidy, who wasn't exactly known for following the rules. Taking his mentor's last name, he became Butch Cassidy. Butch's first major crime was in 1889 when his gang robbed a bank in Colorado, making off with $20,000. Soon, he became a key figure in the Wild Bunch, a group of outlaws who operated along what was called the Outlaw Trail, stretching across the U.S. and into Mexico. One of the most famous members was Butch's partner, Harry Longabaugh, better known as the Sundance Kid. The gang became famous for robbing banks and trains. Between 1896 and 1901, they pulled off about a dozen major heists. But with the law closing in, Butch, Sundance, and Sundance's companion, Etta Place, fled to Argentina. For a time, they left crime behind and tried farming. However, after Etta returned to the U.S. in 1905, Butch and Sundance went back to their old ways. Their story seemingly ended in Bolivia in 1908, where they were reportedly killed in a shootout with soldiers. But mystery surrounds their fate. DNA tests have shown that remains found in Bolivia don't match Butch and Sundance. Some believe they survived, living quietly in South America or even returning to the U.S. Butch's sister claimed he lived under a new name until 1937. The tale of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid has become legendary, capturing the imagination of generations. Their adventures were famously portrayed in the 1969 film starring Paul Newman and Robert Redford. Sundance Kid, whose real name was Harry Alonzo Longabaugh, was a well-known outlaw of the Wild West and Butch Cassidy's close partner. Born in 1867 in Pennsylvania, he got his nickname after serving an 18-month sentence for horse theft in Sundance, Wyoming. In 1896, Harry joined forces with Butch Cassidy, becoming a key member of the Wild Bunch, one of the most daring and successful outlaw gangs in the West. They were experts at robbing banks and trains, consistently evading capture. Their hideout, a remote canyon in Wyoming called the Hole in the Wall, was the perfect base, offering a strategic view of the surrounding area. Sundance Kid had a reputation as a skilled marksman. but it's said that he didn't kill anyone until his final stand in Bolivia. Still, the idea of the Wild Bunch pulling off peaceful robberies is mostly a myth. Their heists often involved violence, and authorities offered a $30,000 reward for their capture, a huge sum at the time. In 1901, Sundance, Butch, and Sundance's companion, Etta Place, fled to Argentina, hoping to lay low. For a while, they lived as farmers, but eventually they returned to a life of crime. In November 1908, in Bolivia, two bandits, believed to be Sundance and Butch, robbed a courier for a silver mining company. Afterward, they were cornered by police in a hotel in the town of San Vicente. A shootout ensued, and both outlaws were reportedly killed. However, their identities were never confirmed. Mystery surrounds their fate. Some claim Sundance survived, adopting a new identity either in the U.S. or somewhere in South America. Like the rest of the Wild Bunch, Sundance Kid's story has taken on a legendary quality, immortalized in the classic 1969 film Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Jefferson Randolph, Soapy Smith II, was one of the Wild West's most creative con men and gang leaders. Born in Georgia to a lawyer and plantation owner, his family fell on hard times after the Civil War and moved to Texas. Soapy's criminal career began with street scams, earning his nickname from his infamous prize soap hustle. He'd sell soap bars supposedly wrapped with cash, rigging the game so his accomplices would win, convincing the crowd to buy more. Soapy built criminal empires in Colorado, Denver and Creede, and Alaska, Skagway, running underground casinos, saloons, and leading a gang of swindlers. What set him apart was his preference for clever schemes over violence. Despite his crimes, Soapy cultivated the image of a respectable citizen. He donated to charities, helped the poor, and even formed a volunteer law enforcement brigade, though these efforts were primarily to maintain his influence. In 1897, Soapy moved to Skagway, Alaska, during the Gold Rush, opening Jeff Smith's Parlor. Here, he orchestrated large-scale scams, including a fake telegraph office that charged miners to send messages, knowing the lines didn't work. At the height of his power, Soapy effectively ruled Skagway, controlling the town's criminal activity and influencing local authority. Soapy's downfall came after a scam involving his gang swindling a prospector, John Stewart, out of a sack of gold worth $2,700, around $71,000 today. When Smith refused to return the gold under pressure from angry townspeople, tensions boiled over. Black Bart, whose real name was Charles Bolton or Bowles, was a legendary and highly unusual outlaw of the Wild West, renowned for his stagecoach robberies and love of poetry. He's remembered as one of the quirkiest criminals of his era. Little is known about Bart's early life. He was likely born in either England or New York and served honorably in the Union Army during the Civil War. Afterward, he moved to California to try his luck in gold mining. However, misfortune may have driven him to a life of crime. Black Bart's first recorded robbery was on July 26, 1875, when he held up a Wells Fargo stagecoach in California. His methods were distinctive, wearing a mask made from a flour sack with eye holes cut out. Bart often staged fake ambushes by planting sticks to resemble armed accomplices. Despite his threats, he never harmed anyone and was famously polite to his victims. Bart gained fame for leaving poetic messages at some of his crime scenes. His first poem, discovered after an 1877 robbery, read, "I've labored long and hard for bread, for honor and for riches, but on my corns too long you've tread, you fine-haired sons of bitches." These notes earned him the nickname Black Bart the Poet, and his sarcastic, humor-filled verses mocked his pursuers. Over the years, Bart conducted about 28 robberies, mainly in California. He managed to elude capture, living quietly in San Francisco under the guise of a respectable businessman. Witnesses often remarked on his courteous demeanor, which added to his mystique. Capture and fate Bart's criminal run ended in November 1883 after he left behind personal items, including a handkerchief with a laundry mark. This clue led Wells Fargo detectives to him. Once caught, Bart confessed to his crimes and revealed that he had taken his alias from a book called The Case of Summerfield. He was sentenced to 6 years at San Quentin prison, but was released after 4 years for good behavior. Following his release, Black Bart disappeared from public view. Rumors circulated that Wells Fargo had paid him off to stay retired, though the company officially denied that. His ultimate fate remains a mystery, leaving his story shrouded in intrigue. William Bill Doolin, 1858-1896, was one of the Wild West's most infamous outlaws, known for his audacious crimes and dramatic clashes with law enforcement. Doolin began his criminal career as a member of the Dalton Gang and is rumored to have been the sixth man during the infamous October 1892 Coffeyville bank raid. He survived because he stayed outside to guard the horses, while the rest of the gang perished in a shootout. Afterward, Bill formed his own gang, the Wild Bunch, gathering nearly 24 criminals. The gang committed numerous bank and train robberies across Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Kansas. Their activities attracted the relentless pursuit of top lawmen, including legendary Sheriff Bill Tillman and U.S. Marshals Chris Madsen and Thomas Crittenden. One of the gang's most notorious encounters was the Battle of Ingalls on September 1, 1893. 14 lawmen launched a fierce shootout with the gang, highlighting the authorities' determination to bring them down. Despite numerous skirmishes with law enforcement, Doolin evaded capture until early 1896, when he was arrested by Sheriff Tillman. However, Doolin proved his reputation for elusiveness by escaping from jail on July 5th of that year. His freedom was short-lived. A month and a half later, Deputy Marshal Thomas Crittenden tracked Doolin to Oklahoma and shot him with a shotgun, ending the outlaw's career once and for all. The tale of Bill Doolin is one of boldness, peril, and an inevitable downfall, cementing his place in the legendary chronicles of the Wild West. Billy the Kid, whose real name was William Henry McCarty, is one of the most famous figures of the Wild West. While he wasn't widely known during his lifetime, he became a legend after New Mexico Governor Lew Wallace put a bounty on his head. Though Billy didn't live to see his 21st birthday, he left a lasting mark on history. The legend says Billy killed 21 people, one for each year of his life, but official records attribute 9 deaths to him, including a sheriff he shot in 1878. Billy was a short, quick-draw gunman with blue eyes and a charming, boyish appearance. Beyond his reputation as a dangerous outlaw, he was also known for his musical talent and charismatic personality. Billy became infamous not just for his crimes, but for his boldness. After being arrested, he managed a daring jailbreak, but didn't stay free for long. Sheriff Pat Garrett tracked him down and ended his brief, eventful life. One of the most iconic pieces of Billy's story is a photograph taken between 1879 and 1880. In it, he holds a Winchester rifle in one hand and a Colt revolver on his hip. Because the image was reversed due to the photo technique, people mistakenly thought he was left-handed, a myth made famous by Western films like The Left-Handed Gun. After Billy's death, Sheriff Garrett wrote a book, The Authentic Life of Billy the Kid, which helped turn him into a legendary Wild West hero. Billy's life has inspired countless movies, including Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, starring actors like Paul Newman and Chris Christopherson. His one surviving photograph became the most expensive photo ever sold at auction, fetching $2.6 million. It's not just a rare artifact, but a symbol of an era where fact and myth blended to create the legend of Billy the Kid. Tom Horn Jr., 1860 to 1903, is one of the Wild West's most controversial figures, a man whose life combined scouting, detective work, and, allegedly, hired killing. Horn worked as a scout, cowboy, and an agent for the famed Pinkerton Detective Agency. Rumors also tied him to numerous murders that became his grim calling card. His first victim was said to be a Mexican Army lieutenant, and stories claim he killed up to 50 people. However, documented evidence confirms 17 deaths attributed to him. Ranchers often hired Horn for his ruthless efficiency in dealing with cattle rustlers and other threats. In 1902, Horn was arrested for the murder of 14-year-old Willie Nickel in Wyoming. The case led to his conviction, though many still debate his guilt. The evidence against him included a drunken confession, raising questions about whether his trial was fair. Despite this, Horn was hanged on November 20th, 1903, just before his 43rd birthday. While in jail, Horn wrote an autobiography titled Life of Tom Horn, Government Scout and Interpreter, detailing his eventful life. Published posthumously in 1904, the book has been reprinted many times and remains a key source about his life. Tom Horn's story is as divisive as his reputation. Some see him as a cold-blooded killer, while others view him as a victim of injustice. His life has inspired numerous books, films, and debates. The question of his true role in Willie Nickel's murder remains unanswered, adding to the enduring mystery of this complex Wild West figure. Wyatt Earp, 1848 to 1929, is one of the most iconic figures of the Wild West, a man whose story has become a key part of American history and culture. Known as a deputy sheriff, buffalo hunter, gambler, and participant in the legendary gunfight at the OK Corral, Earp embodies the complex spirit of his time. Wyatt's fame largely comes from the gunfight in Tombstone, Arizona in 1881. Alongside his brothers Virgil and Morgan and their ally Doc Holliday, Wyatt faced off against a gang of cowboys. The shootout left 3 outlaws dead and became a defining moment in Wild West history, inspiring numerous movies and books. After his brother Morgan was murdered in 1882, Wyatt took matters into his own hands. Leading a group of gunmen in what became known as the Vendetta Ride, Earp tracked down and killed those he believed were responsible for the attack on his family. Reports suggest his group eliminated around 30 people during this mission. Earp wasn't just a skilled gunman and lawman, he was also a complex and often controversial figure. His life included buffalo hunting, running saloons, frequenting gambling halls, and even spending time in red light districts. Despite his rough edges, Earp remains a symbol of order in the chaos of the Wild West, though his methods were far from conventional. After his death in 1929, Wyatt Earp became a legend. His life has been portrayed in over 15 films, including Tombstone and Wyatt Earp. Writers, filmmakers, and historians continue to draw inspiration from his story, cementing his legacy as a symbol of justice in the untamed frontier. John Wesley Hardin, 1853 to 1895, was one of the most violent and ruthless outlaws of the Wild West, leaving behind a bloody trail of crimes and killings. He took his first life at just 15, killing an African-American man during a fight. Hardin's brutality wasn't limited to self-defense. While working as a cattleman, he killed 6 Mexican rustlers who tried to steal his herd. One of his most infamous acts occurred when he shot a man through a hotel wall simply because the man's snoring annoyed him. By the time of his capture, Hardin had killed over 40 people, making him a symbol of unchecked violence on the frontier. Despite his deadly reputation, he remained a figure of fascination. In 1895, Hardin met his end in a saloon in El Paso, where he was shot and killed, bringing his reign of terror to an abrupt conclusion. Hardin's story didn't fade with his death. Instead, he became a cult figure in Western folklore. His legacy even extended to pop culture. Bob Dylan named his 1967 album John Wesley Harding after him, further cementing his place in the mythology of the American West.